Food is interesting because it's involved in every part of our life. Most people start their day with it. It's the midpoint. You break for lunch, and then it's dinner that you go home and you have it with your family, hopefully, or you eat it in a car really fast. And there's all these different factors. You need it to exist, regardless how many meal replacement bars or shakes or smoothies you're going to eat. So food, as well as being edible and what we live off of, it's also my art. It's the photographic medium. It's what I work with. So what draws me to making art involving food is something so simple can be so complex. There's so many layers to it. But we always have this intimate experience with it. But we don't know anything about it. There was never at any point that I thought I would be a photographer. Much rather thought I was going to be an astronaut. That was like the first thing I ever thought I was going to be. My parents have an interesting relationship with my art. I think in the beginning they were pretty scared because I was supposed to be a doctor, even though I never had grades that you would think that this kid should be a doctor. If you're not a doctor, you're an engineer, you're an IT in the Indian background. That was just the way it was. My way to art was pretty indirect because when I was 20, I was diagnosed with leukemia and I went through chemotherapy. But the side effects of the chemotherapy, I developed a bone disease which caused these joint issues that followed me throughout my 20s. Between the ages of 20 and 29, I've had 16 surgeries, 3 hip replacements. My 20s were spent doing things that a 1-year-old does, like learning how to walk. Photography is a release to me because I was confined for so long, and all of a sudden I had freedom. I had no freedom before. I was confined to my own body. I could actually experience the world. When I was in grad school, there was a color darkroom and I was fascinated by it because no one used it, and it was in the basement. You could have the printer in like 5 enlargers to yourself if you wanted, so you could set several projects up. I was drawn to the darkroom because it engaged your hands, and I thought with digital photography, we had kind of gotten away from that. I started taking food, slicing it thinly, and putting it in an enlarger, and manipulating it with light and color, and projecting on a piece of paper, and I thought that was quite fascinating that you could take something we had an extremely familiar relationship with and manipulate it in a minor way, but then it totally completely removes you from any context you were otherwise familiar with. I started taking glass plates and putting lettuce in them and painting them and seeing different shades and the different textures that you could get with just a piece of lettuce. At that point, Fukushima occurred in Japan, and I was fascinated that we had no rational solution to stopping what was going on in the nuclear reactors. And I realized if the water is seeping into the ground, it's contaminating all the crops, then it's going out to sea. And lettuce became an instrument, I guess, to show the radioactivity. In art school, it was like, it just fell on deaf ears or blind eyes. It was not the greatest thing they'd ever seen. No one cared for it. Being told you're not the greatest thing on earth is a great thing, because you're gonna have to figure out why you're doing it. My reasons for making art don't have anything to do with anyone else. It's mainly always been because I was interested in something, and so this process fascinated me, so I kept on following through with it. The ones that were the most difficult to get flat or to slice or to get the fluid out were the most rewarding. Tomatoes are they're just bags of water with seeds in them. Just a bag of cells. I mean, that's what we are. Cells with some seeds in them. Watermelon to me looks like veins. It just looks like the vascular system. I couldn't slice a banana and then flatten it because it would just become mush. So then I thought, okay, then I'll take the peel, because this actually has some substance. It's flat. I could dry it. Like the seeds in a strawberry actually like form the most interesting part of the image, like trying to get light through that seed. They don't really serve any tasteful purpose, right? They just get stuck in your teeth. But that was the most interesting part of the image. Same with like an orange rind or the corn stalk or the core of an onion. My relationship with fast food really changed after photographing it. One, because I had to just have my hands in it for an extended period of time. When we eat fast food, you inhale it. It's gone like 30 seconds later and you're ready to go back around in the drive-thru. But the actual act of it is pretty disgusting. Like the cheeseburger is just an amorphous blob. There was no definition. Beef came from a cow, supposedly. So it should have like striations. It should have something that tells you what it was before. So after doing that, no, I don't eat cheeseburgers. As I kept on digging further, you start seeing these different similarities between these different bodies. How can space look the same as an MRI or a cheeseburger? There's all these similarities, and you start seeing common threads in the universe, or you start understanding, through how little you know, then you want to learn more. So when I exhibit them, I don't have labels, and I think that introduces a conversation, because then people have to ask, and then you can talk to them about the process. A lot of times, some people view art with the label first, and then you've kind of, not ruined it for them, but you've changed it. So there was an orange that I exhibited in Hong Kong, and it was purple. And one woman said she saw people dancing. And it blew my mind, because I'm looking at it, and I don't see anyone dancing. In the same image later on at another exhibit, someone said they saw fire. I call the lemon Jesus, because it looks like Jesus on the cross. It just does to me. And then the carrot had the Mother Mary references. Everyone laughs after you tell them what it is, or they're just looking at you extremely perplexed. We usually just take food on the surface and we eat it. We don't usually question anything. We're starting to question, is the culture, where does it come from? Is it organic or is it not? How is it manufactured? So when I started looking at this imagery, or just looking at art and the creative process differently, then I started realizing how little I actually knew. I still don't know what makes the apple core look this particular way. Why is it this texture? There's science behind it, how it forms, and it makes me more curious. I always had random questions that no one really had answers for when I was a kid, so that probably makes sense why I ended up here, is that art provides some sort of answers, or it gives you enough comfort that you don't have the answers.